Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. This is Caroline Pag with the Alexandria Burke Branch Library. Welcome to our program celebrating Earth Month, Air Quality Action Days, to learn more about air quality and the steps you can take to improve air in your home. Joining us is Melissa Atwood. She's a senior environmental specialist with the Office of Environmental Quality, the City of Alexandria. And our second speaker is Natalie Talis. She's a population health manager with the Alexandria Health Department. And just a note reminder that everyone is muted. So if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to post them in the chat or the Q&A. We'd love to hear from you. All right, well, I'm going to hand it over to you, Melissa and Natalie. Thank you so much for presenting this today.
Thank you. And good afternoon. I'm Melissa Atwood. I'm going to start by going through some of the outdoor air pollution stuff, a little bit of history, getting us started. Obviously, air pollution is not a new thing. It's been around for a long time. And this is how a lot of our regulations came about. So some examples we have here come from So a lot of the pollution that we experience today comes from things that were actually a benefit to us. So we had the Industrial Revolution. A lot of good things come from that, but you have the negative, unintended consequences of pollution that can occur. And a lot of that's because we don't know that it's going to happen. So examples come from, you have the Cuyahoga River, which ended up, all of the fires that were on that river ended up leading to the regulations for the Clean Water Act. And then moving to the air side, pollution side of things, the creation of automobiles, industrial processes, the burning of coal for factories and in homes, things that were used in different times, they all have caused serious problems, which led to smog. Two smog episodes that are pretty well known. One is in Donora, Pennsylvania, that was in October of 1948. And you could see there that it asphyxiated 20 people, making more than 7,000 seriously ill. The next one was the smog of London. And smog, of course, is the mixture of fog and smoke. And so this is the smog of London occurred in 1952. They had an estimated 100,000 people injured and 4,000 people died. And one thing to keep in mind is those numbers and those casualties, illnesses were all based on the way they were able to determine who got sick at that time. And that number could be different in the way that we looked at it today. But again, here's another example. These events and the media coverage and getting recognition for all the pollution is a way that through different iterations, we came to the Clean Air Act of 1990. So on average, we inhale about 500 cubic feet of air every day. How much that is, we know it's a lot, right? We breathe all day long. It's important that we have good air quality. It can have some serious negative health effects to you. My presentation is mostly going to focus on the environmental side of things, but because of the importance of it protecting your health, we just wanted to go through a few of these examples of what can happen. So in poor air quality, the example is for ozone, but it can relate to other pollutants as well. Irritate your respiratory system, reduce lung function, make your lungs more susceptible to infection, aggravate asthma. These are examples, and you can see the trifolds here from the EPA provided by that. So there's 4 different types or categories that we're going to talk about for air pollution. This is the mobile sources. This is your cars, your vehicles. It includes airplanes and trains as well. Stationary sources, such as your power plants or your industries. Area sources, cities, where wood burning fireplaces. And of course, our natural sources, which I don't have a picture on here. These are your windblown dust or wildfires like we experienced last year. So because when the Clean Air Act came about, it did focus on trying to come up with what they call criteria pollutants. There are 6 criteria pollutants, and it's what what that means, criteria pollutants means, is air pollutants defined by EPA whose concentrations in the ambient air must be maintained at low levels to protect human health. So each of them has what we call the National Ambient Air Quality Standard. It has a limit that can be out there to still be healthy for you. Quickly going through some of these background ones, we're going to focus on the last two, which are the ground level ozone and the particulate pollution. But I wanted to touch on the other four briefly. So nitrogen dioxide is one. Primary source is burning of fuels like vehicle emissions, power plants, off-road equipment. Environmental impacts. Nitrogen dioxide interacts with chemicals in the atmosphere that causes acid rain. Acid rain becomes harmful to our sensitive ecosystems like the lakes and forest. Sulfur dioxide, again, fossil fuel combustion power plants, industrial facilities, same thing. It can create the acid rain, which can cause harm to trees and plants. Carbon monoxide is mostly from a health side of things, not as many environmental impacts because it's gonna be hard to get a high concentration of carbon monoxide outside, but where that pollutant would come from would be your vehicles and machinery that burn fossil fuels. Lead, mostly from the lead smelters, which means where they produce or the production of lead is done. Lead is persistent in the environment, so it hangs around a long time. And what happens when you have a lot of lead in the environment is it results in the decreased growth and production of plants and animals and some neurological effects in your vertebrae. So just taking a quick look at how these pollutants can affect not only our health on the last screen, but the environmental impacts. So we know why it's so important to remove them as we go through and talk about a lot of what we're looking at for air quality. So as I said, there's two other air pollutants that were other criteria, the ozone and the particulate pollution. So ozone is one of those pollutants you're not going to see. So you see down in the corner, there's a picture where it shows the code yellow and the code red of the tree in the field. There's a clear difference in what you're seeing in air quality in that picture. That's for particulate pollution that we'll talk about the next time. Ozone pollution is unseen. You're not going to know that it's there. And that's why it's really important to know what our air quality is outside. Ozone is a reaction that takes place. So those nitrogen dioxide chemicals we talked about mix with VOCs from our or volatile organic compounds that come from our combustion of gases and gas vapors, chemical solvents, motor vehicle exhaust, those types of things, right? So all that ends up in the air, combines together. And ozone is created in the presence of heat. So as the day goes on and it gets hotter, you're going to have more ozone created by the pollutants that are in the air. Oh, I did forget that. I'm going to scooch back real quick. I forgot to talk about the ecological effects or the environmental effects, right? So these can affect sensitive vegetation and ecosystems, your forests, parks, wildlife refuges or refuge and wilderness areas. It can harm sensitive vegetation, especially during the growing season. Basically, what it does is it reduces photosynthesis or its ability to be able to create energy in order to live and grow. And that makes it so that the plants are going to be growing, they're not going to grow as much, and they're also going to be less tolerant to disease and other things that can happen. All right, our last pollutant of the six is particulate pollution. We're going to be talking about the fine particulate, which is considered anything smaller than 2.5 microns. For context, I gave a couple examples here of different things. One thing to keep in mind is if you look like at a strand of your hair that we can see, that's about 70 microns. The smallest that we can see is 40, which is pretty close to that household dust. So 2.5 is really small particulate pollution. These mostly come from construction sites, unpaved roads, and fires, smokestacks and fires. One of the big problems with particulate pollution is because they're so small, when they get in the air, it can get very deep into our lungs, causing major health problems. So all these pollutants, right, they're all part of this Clean Air Act. We talked about the National Ambient Air Quality Standards. They each have a certain level that they need to be below, and the reasons for it are what we just discussed. So the Clean Air Act went into law and with major changes and became the in 1990. And what we see with the Clean Air Act is over time, there's still things to change, right? These national ambient air quality standards will continue to evolve in order to protect the environment. So we'll get new requirements like the examples that are shown here. For example, in May, the PM 2.5 standard is going to be changing again. It's changing to decrease from 12 micrograms per meter cube down to 9 micrograms per meter cube. We also have, so that you have low requirements and new requirements. Well, let's talk about some of the wins that we have, the things that the Clean Air Act has done to help us. I'm not going to go through all of these, but some examples that refer to those criteria pollutants. Lead is removed from gasoline. The lead in the air decreased by 98% when that happened. Sulfur in gasoline reduced by 90%. Reducing the power plant emissions of sulfur dioxide decrease that acid rain we talked about, which affects our ecosystems. Reducing the amount of NOx, the different types of nitrogen oxide compounds, as well as phosphorus. Reducing the amount of them in the airway helped with them not getting into our waterways by rain and being pulled out of the air by rain, polluting our bay. So we have a lot of examples of things that have helped clean it. Just a fun one at the bottom is the commercial marine vessels. They're 90% cleaner for particulate emissions. So that's something that we usually think about the cars, but not as much about the boats. So how do we know what the air quality is? And this is one of the things after last year with a lot of the fires, maybe more people are aware of the AQI color coding or the air quality index. So this index uses color coding because it's one of the easier ways to communicate what's happening. You can look at it quickly and understand what the air quality outside is. And it's important not only from the health side of things like we talked about, but also that environmental side. So here's kind of the list of the different air quality indexes on here. We're going to go through how each of them kind of is a little bit different on the next slides. But you can also sign up that on the right-hand side there, you have the Air Now. It says air quality notifications. You can sign up and get those every day when the air quality is bad, or just every day if you want to see them. So you always know how it can affect your health or the environment. So a real quick run through, and I'm making it in good time here. So the quick run through is for each of the different colors. Code green means good to go. Go outside, do the things you need to. Everything's a great day. Going to be a great day for outdoor activities that you might need. Code yellow, this is our moderate, and it's more risk for some people. Those are unusually sensitive or have some sort of maybe something that causes them to have more problems with their respiratory, right? So code yellow is a warning in that sense. It's still a good day for most people, but you need to know what is best for you individually and anything that could be going on. Code orange is unhealthy for sensitive groups. You're starting to look at trying to decrease the amount of strenuous activity that happens outside, shorten the amount of time you're outside. So it might still be okay to go out, but you got to be aware of how long you're out there and how it can impact you. Again, these are all very general. It can be different depending on how sensitive you are to pollutants in the air. And that's something to consider when you're looking at the values and the different colors that are used in this AQI, air quality index. Code red is unhealthy. This is where it's starting to become a little more, you don't have to have any sort of reason that your respiratory is more sensitive, most people are probably going to start feeling some impacts of the air quality on a code red. You want to limit your time outside or avoid it if you can. Definitely shorten it and move to other activities. Wait, if it's recreational, you can reschedule, start rescheduling, and looking at doing things inside. Code purple, very unhealthy. Again, avoiding the physical outdoor activities. And code maroon, even worse, right? Stay indoors, make sure you're indoors someplace that has good air quality, and check on those in your family or your surrounding community that may need extra help or may have more concerns for their health when the air quality gets to those levels. So things that we can do. I did put a couple things on here for protecting your health as well as the environment. This is all outside. I will say that the protect your health part all comes from the EPA's website. And the environment side, things that we can do, we want to be able to minimize the amount of pollutants that we put into the air by changing maybe some of the things we had on our to-do list for the day. For example, you plan to go to the store to go pick up groceries, but you can wait until the next day when the air quality is better. We want to minimize the use of our vehicles and getting the exhaust in there that can cause these pollutants to become worse for the environment. So use alternate modes of transportation, bikes, e-scooters, walk. On the bad days, probably don't do any of those, right? Try and stay inside and make it a different day. Use battery-powered lawn and garden equipment. And these are good ideas and examples of things you can do even on good air quality days, right? But there's still ways that we can keep those pollutants out of our air. Plant some trees. We love our trees. They help us in so many different ways. Reduce energy use, energy efficient appliances inside, turning off lights, all of those different things, just helping reduce that energy use overall. And if it is a bad air quality day and you're looking at those ozone, the refueling of cars, wait until later, wait until the sun goes down and you're not going to have that problem with the sunlight causing those reactions into the ozone. From the health side of things, avoid exercising or working outside for long periods of time, especially as those days get worse into the red, the purple, and the maroon. Choose less strenuous outdoor activities. Same during those worst days, make sure you're being more aware of that. Walk and exercise away from busy roads. This is where those exhausts come in from. One of those sources was our mobile sources from traffic and vehicles. Reschedule outdoor recreational activities if you can, and avoid burning things that generate smoke. So from the outdoor side of things, the big thing we want you to understand or take away is remember that those air quality indexes are there to help you understand what the day is going to look like from an environmental side of things. They start in May and run through September because those are the hotter months of the year. So of course, those pollutants are going to be a lot more. The focus of them looks at the particulate pollution and the ozone. And then you can look at them and be able to use that information to what's best for you, given your health and your current limitations or not in life, to be able to take care of your health, but also take care of that environment. I'm going to pass it over to Natalie.
Thanks, Melissa. So I'm Natalie Talis. I'm the Population Health Manager with the Alexandria Health Department, and Melissa covered a lot about outdoor air quality. And so I'm going to be focusing on indoor air quality. And there are a lot of things that it overlaps on, but also some unique things that we're going to talk about. And so we'll look at what is contributing to poor indoor air quality, how it impacts your health, and then also what the city of Alexandria is doing to try to address those issues in our community, and then what you personally can do about your indoor home air quality. So next slide, please, Melissa. All right, what is in your indoor air? So this is a little overwhelming, maybe a little scary, but it's good to really see things sometimes in picture form. It definitely makes you look at your home in a slightly different lens. So there are all sorts of things within our home that contribute to our air quality. They are everyday things. For example, something that is kind of an odd thing is if you have a printer at home, actually that gives off certain chemicals. When you're burning candles, if you're burning incense, as well as if you are cooking, that also produces emissions from that. And primarily what I'm going to be talking about with a lot of these things is particulate matter, what Melissa covered quite a bit about. And the things that we're really worried about here for your indoor air is that particulate matter 2.5. So the really, really, really small particulate matter. And so you can see that it comes from a lot of different places. So depending on what cleaning supplies you're using, what the outdoor air quality is looking like, if you're bringing that into your home, a lot of people are using air fresheners, other things, but that can also contribute to making things a little bit harder to breathe. Also, our pets can definitely contribute, which I always see firsthand when my cat's hair is on everything in my home. It's hard to ignore that their dander is contributing to our air. And then unfortunately, in the city of Alexandria, we have a lot of homes that deal with mold, with dust, with pests such as cockroaches, mice, even that cute little guy in the bottom left corner, that little mouse. And we also have a lot of homes that struggle with issues around clutter, like the image that you see kind of in that middle left portion, where a lot of paper, a lot of items in the home accumulate dust and other things that contribute to particulate matter that can get into our lungs and have all sorts of really harmful impacts. So next slide. All right. So what are the health impacts of those different things? So this can really vary actually depending on you and depending on your personal situation. So folks who already have a respiratory condition such as asthma or COPD, which stands for chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, if you already have one of those respiratory conditions, you are more likely to be impacted if you have other sorts of indoor air pollutants in your home. So you might have what's known as flare-ups or triggers, where you might have coughing fits. It might be super hard to breathe, a lot of irritation in your eyes, your nose, your throat. You know, right now everyone is talking about allergy season in Alexandria, the pollen that is everywhere. And, you know, a lot of people experience some of those same really challenging health effects that a lot of us are kind of experiencing outside right now, but in their home, because of the things that are in their space that are triggering those respiratory reactions. So, you know, it's not just sort of that cold symptom feeling, but it can be really scary for folks who have those respiratory conditions, sending people to urgent care, to the emergency room, to try to address the inability to breathe or other concerns. In the long term too, so we're talking months, years of exposure to some of these chemicals, some of these particulate matters, it can also have other really serious, scary impacts for people, such as heart disease, cancer, respiratory disease. And that's partially because, again, that particulate matter is so small that it can travel through your lungs into various crevices and do damage there. So it can move into your bloodstream. It can impact how your vessels work. And so that's why it can be so concerning to have some of that particulate matter and other harmful pollutants inside your home that you're exposed to day after day after day in your community. And the really challenging thing with indoor air quality is that, unlike outdoor air quality, there's not really a lot of set standards for how we measure that. Like what are the standards for how healthy our indoor air should be? There are certain pollutants that we think about, okay, how do we measure this? Do we know if it's okay? Such as radon. Right, radon is something that is really cheap and easy to test for. And it is an odorless gas. Can't see it, it's colorless. And you can get a super, super cheap test from the Virginia Department of Health for about $3 to test for radon in your home. Also, we have carbon monoxide monitors. Hopefully everybody has a carbon monoxide monitor in their home, as well as smoke detectors, things like that. But we're often not looking for other measures of particulate matter in our home. And that can be really challenging sometimes to know what's really in our air. How do we know if we have, quote unquote, good air in our space? So next slide. All right, so even though I'm focusing a lot on the home today, indoor air clearly matters in other spaces. So, for example, there have been more and more studies lately tying children's academic performance in schools to the air quality in their schools. So kids that are experiencing better air quality might be able to pay attention better. They do better on tests. They're not going to the nurse's office all the time for headaches, other issues. And so being able to look at air quality in spaces really is an investment, not just even in all those scary health things that I mentioned, but also other parts of our lives, and similar into the workplace too, right? If you are not feeling well because of particulate matter in your space or other issues, then you're not going to do as well in the workplace. There's actually this term that was created, I think it was back in the 70s, called sick building syndrome, where people who were in certain spaces that had challenges with indoor air quality just, felt really bad in that space. And then when they left that space, they felt better, right? Pretty straightforward. But the challenge is, well, where is that bad feeling or that sick feeling coming from? Right? It could be from chemicals that are coming from paint that's used or cleaning supplies that are used. It could be coming from outdoor spaces, coming into the building. It could be from mold issues. It could be from the dust and debris that pests leave behind in our spaces. And again, it's really hard to kind of definitively say exactly, well, the levels are this, and this in this home, and it's because of X, Y, and Z reason. And so I'll talk a little bit later about how do you really think about a more holistic approach to indoor air and addressing that within your home and other spaces. All right, so first, what is Alexandria doing? I want to talk to you all about a relatively new program that the Alexandria Health Department has running called ALX Breathes. So this is an initiative specifically for people with asthma and COPD or COPD. And it's meant to address those breathing issues based on addressing indoor air quality concerns. So the way that the program works is that we have these phenomenal community health workers who would go into a home to really try to assess for a broad range of those triggers, which again, we're focused a lot on folks that already have those respiratory conditions, but even if you don't have those respiratory conditions, still experiencing some of those factors in your home can make you feel really crummy on a day-to-day basis, which is, we get a lot of calls like that actually at the health department, which, are similar to, I don't know what's going on in my space. I think there are these issues with it. I always feel sick at home, a lot of vague symptoms, right? Like headaches, or I just feel kind of crummy in my space. And I think there's something wrong with my air. So this program is really looking at, okay, can we visibly see mold? Are there evidence of pests? What sort of cleaning supplies does the family currently use? And maybe those are potential triggers. Is there anyone who is smoking in the household, creating additional concerns? What are the ventilation systems looking like at home? So kind of all those things that I talked about in that first image of a home is what we're looking for. Then part of the program is to address those concerns with green cleaning supplies. We provide a HEPA air purifier, which is to really try to filter out more of the harmful air pollutants, as well as do education on how to address those concerns and provide any referrals to community services, with the ideal goal that people are feeling healthier at home, right? That's the bottom line. We want people to be able to breathe in their home, to feel healthy, to feel comfortable, and to be able to best manage their own respiratory health, with the goal that they are missing fewer school and work days. They are not going to the hospital as much because of their asthma or COPD, and everyone is saving money, right? You go to the hospital less, you feel less crummy on a day-to-day basis, you are saving money, and everyone is a lot happier. Then the next slide. So we are not just in the business of programs. The city is doing a lot right now thinking about systems level work when it comes to indoor air quality in homes. So the city started a Healthy Homes Network, which is a local coalition of various city agencies, of nonprofits, of property managers, who are all coming together to try to address the challenges around healthy homes and the various problems there. And so the result was developing an action plan to come up with a lot of different pathways of what can we do about this that is not just serving, maybe one person at a time through a program, with the long-term goal here being that every single Alexandrian lives in a safe, healthy home where they can thrive, which is a big, big goal, but I feel confident that we're going to get there eventually. So part of that work is we are doing a lot of community engagement around home issues and solutions. And I actually might put something in the chat later, an opportunity for folks to get involved in a community session that we're hosting in May. Because really, we can't come up with solutions to some of these home challenges without talking to the people who are most impacted. And so again, right now, as I mentioned, it's kind of hard to really measure some of these concerns. So we're going to be working to develop some new metrics for how do we look at data, how do we share data between different city agencies, different entities, to have a better idea of how healthy our homes are. That also means looking at more proactive, preventive work. We don't want to just be reactive when someone calls and complains about a situation that they're in that is unhealthy. We really need to be thinking about how can we do more. And I'll mention too that the Office of Code Administration within the city is doing a lot of work on this to expand their work in proactively inspecting rental properties in the community to make sure that they have all the systems in place necessary, that they're doing the maintenance in place to be as healthy as possible for residents. So next slide. All right, so that's a little bit about what the city is doing. And just like Melissa shared about what you can do around the outdoor air quality, I want to share a little bit about some very practical steps that you can take to address indoor air quality within your home, or if you have the ability to influence this at your workplace, or to maybe influence your schools to be doing this. So one is to really think about your air filter efficiency. You probably heard a lot about this during COVID, right? When we were all thinking about spread of virus in our homes and looking at things like those portable HEPA filters, or other things that we could do to improve the filtration of particulate matter in our home or viruses. So that is something that you can definitely look at for your HVAC system and what you can do there. There's also, though, if you don't have control over that, say if you live in an apartment and it's not up to you to really be able to convince your landlord to upgrade your air filtration system, there are nice little portable air filters. So the ones that that we use at the health department to support our ALX Breathes participants, they're about $100 that we use. And so people can get that for their home. If that is too much, there are also videos online about how you can make your own with a bunch of different components that are relatively cheap that you can get at Home Depot. So there are all sorts of ways that you can kind of DIY your own portable air filter as well. The other thing that we would recommend is to use green cleaning products. So what do I mean by that? There are a lot of products out there that will say that they're green, but what that really means is looking at, there's a great website that the EPA has that lists a lot of different cleaning products that won't contribute to additional particulate matter or additional chemical reactions in your home that might impact your breathing. So for example, a lot of people traditionally like to use bleach to clean mold, but if you have asthma or COPD or another respiratory concern, or even if you don't, sometimes that bleach can actually trigger more of an asthma flare-up. So partially defeating the purpose of what you're trying to do. There's other things besides the product. So it's also the techniques that you use. So think about dusting. If you have a ton of dust in your home that is making you cough, if you just, take a dry rag to dust that off, you are just sending it into the air, which is what you're going to breathe back in. And so the recommendation is using wet dusting techniques or vacuuming. So having a damp cloth instead to wipe up the dust better traps it, so you're not just sending it back into the air for you to breathe again. Another really big thing about things like mold or pests is that they don't usually come from nowhere. And so really the big thing here is, how do we address those concerns at the root of the issue? Because otherwise you're going to be cleaning up that mold over and over and over again. So what I mean by that is that mold is generally a moisture issue. So it could be coming from a leak that is happening. It could be coming from a very humid environment. And so really looking at, well, what is leading to the mold that I have, and trying to address that first. Because again, say that you have a leak under your bathroom sink and you're getting a ton of mold in there. Well, you can clean it as well as you want, but if you don't fix that initial leak, you're going to keep having that mold come back over and over and over again. Same thing with the pests. There are things that you can do to try to address the pests. And some of those really come from not even just putting out a lot of pesticides, but thinking about, okay, how am I storing my food? Am I making it easy and welcome for these bugs to come in and spend a lot of time in my home? Or am I, being mindful of cutting off their food and water supply, right? Kind of blocking up any holes that they might be coming through, putting away food, having it sealed up a little bit better. Looking at things like that can really make a big difference. The other thing I mentioned in terms of impacts on indoor air was about cooking and that humidity from bathing as well. So sometimes we have these great hoods over our stove that can ventilate things to the outside, but those don't always work. And sometimes they actually just blow the air back into your home. They don't go to anywhere outside. But what can we do to make sure that we're using things that work when possible? So if you are cooking, making sure that you have fans turned on, if you're able to open your windows, are really a good way to try to move out some of the particulate matter that you're creating when cooking outside rather than re-inhaling it. And again, similar to what Melissa said, when you know that the outdoor air quality is not good, keeping your windows closed, really thinking about, those points that air might be coming in and how that's impacting your indoor air. So these are just a few very practical things that you can do in your home, but of course it depends on the specific issue that you have going on in your space. We are going to have more guidance and tools on our website coming soon that people can use for this, but people are also welcome to call the health department to talk through how we can provide you some over-the-phone support if you do not have a respiratory condition and don't qualify for ALX Breathes. And then I think the next slide might just be questions. So I think Melissa and I are happy to answer any questions that folks have if you want to put them in the chat. And then I'm going to go ahead and put a link to the community conversation that I mentioned coming up in May that I hope you all are able to attend.
Thank you so much, Natalie and Melissa. Just going through the questions. I don't see any. I think the only question I saw was if you'd be willing to share the slides. Would that be okay with both of you? And I will send it to the person who requested it. So yeah, please reach out to me if you're interested. And still checking the questions. I don't think I see a question aside from that. So if anyone attending this program, if you have any questions, please post it now. Yes, okay. Let's see. There's something in Q&A. Okay, so we have a question here. Would an air filter help? Can one of you answer that?
An air filter help. I'm just fine. So it can help sometimes for different concerns. So like if you have a lot of particulate matter in your home, it can make a difference in terms of if you have like a little portable air filter, that can definitely make a difference. You also have to just make sure, of course, that you are changing out those filters that come in that portable air cleaner too. So it depends what setting you run it at, but usually about every 3 to 6 months, you have to replace the air filters within those, but they can definitely make a big difference in terms of your breathing, how much particulate matter that you have at home.
Thank you, Natalie, and thank you to the person who asked that question. I don't see any other questions here.
So real quick before we wrap up, if there's no other questions, I did want to make a mention as well that May 6th through 10th, coming up just around the corner, is Air Quality Awareness Week. So it's another good time to just think about the things that we went through here, sign up for your notifications for air quality action days, and maybe even get some other information as it comes through from the Awareness Week itself.
Thank you, Melissa. And Natalie, I see you had posted a link. So check that out as well in the chat. Just wanted to reiterate what I posted earlier. You can find additional programs at the library. Please go to our website, alexlibraryva.org/events. There's also more information on our city of Alexandria's Earth Month celebration, although we're at the tail end of the month, but please check it out, all the different kinds of programs we have throughout the city. And yeah, well, thank you so much, Natalie and Melissa, for this presentation. It's very informative, and I hope this was helpful for everyone who attended today. And again, it's there's a comment. Great job, Melissa and Natalie from Jean Ann. Thank you, Jean Ann.
Thank
And
you.
it will be it will go up to our YouTube page. So if you've missed it, or if you want to send it to anyone who could benefit from this presentation, please feel free to share. And again, thank you everyone so much. Thank you, Natalie and Melissa.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.